From leaving a lasting impression on Lance Stephenson, to playing an entire game left-handed because, well, why not? These are times Larry Bird shocked the world. For someone who retired in the early 90s, Larry looks like he can still do a fantastic job for a team that needs a three-point shooter. Why? Because that's what Lance Stephenson saw when he signed for the Indiana Pacers. The 32-year-old recalled the time when he was with the Pacers and stretching with the rest of the team before practice. Larry was the team president back then, casually walked onto the court and grabbed a basketball. Stephenson remembers Bird taking up a position and starting to hit three after three. While talking about what he witnessed, Lance simply said, "Swish, swish, swish." Lance and his teammates were stunned. They stood there in shock and disbelief, and Lance asked him if they were seeing this right now. According to Lance, Bird made at least 10 shots in a row from beyond the arc, and simply walked off and sat like it was nothing. Maybe Russell Westbrook can learn a thing or two from the former Celtics man. It was at that moment Lance realized why Bird's so remembered and revered as one of the greatest players of all time. There's no substitute for talent, or having a loud mouth, because as good as Bird was, he was always a much better trash talker. Former player and coach Doc Rivers remembers Bird's 60-point madness against the Hawks. It was a crazy performance from the superstar in many ways. But the fact that he was calling the play and bullying the opposition while he did it makes it so much sweeter. Larry had a way of getting into the heads of his opposition, and man was it effective. It proved to be one of those nights for the Celtics, and Bird started on the front foot, calling the shots off the glass or who's next after making them. Then he asked one of the defenders who he wanted that shot from, and made it from a difficult angle. Just like that, Bird racked up 55 as the Boston bench was left awestruck. Even if this was a regular occurrence for Larry, it was still absolutely wild to witness it. Rivers explains that by the time he got to the last shot, they knew Larry was saving it for something special. And that's exactly what he did coming down the court, saying, "In the trainer's lab." Larry let a long three fly from the distance, and Reggie Brown, trying to get a small win, came rushing out to block the shot. Brown missed, while Larry's rainbow went in as Reggie bumped into him, knocking Larry onto his trainer's lap. The Celtics bench was already on their feet. Even the Hawks bench couldn't contain their excitement. And Cliff Livingston and Eddie Johnson were high-fiving each other. Unreal. Sometimes the opposition would get triggered by Larry's stellar performances, and fights would break out, which is what happened between Larry Bird and the Pistons back in 1987. The Bad Boys era of the Pistons never backed down from a fight, and Bird himself had a reputation for being a hot-headed superstar. Things got out of hand during their 1987 game, though, when Bird was body-slammed by Bill Laimbeer. Bird went down along with Dennis Rodman and Laimbeer himself, and he totally lost it. As soon as Larry got up, he started swinging at Laimbeer and had to be physically restrained. Even after they were separated, Larry threw the ball at Laimbeer before taking on Rodman head-on. For the fans, it was just another Celtics-Pistons game, and believe it or not, Larry actually had a shorter fuse earlier in his career. His punching match with Alan Bristow remains one of the most infamous incidents of his career. This was back in 1981, and the short video clip went viral. If you search hard enough, you might just get lucky. Alan's lying on the floor, with Bird jumping down at him and pushing his head to the floor. It didn't paint a pretty picture of Larry, and he received backlash when the clip went viral a few years later. In the video, you can see Alan get up, and the two take part in an epic slugfest. But it wasn't only Larry's fist that could do damage. His words could cut deep too. Here's another instance of Bird's superior trash talking, the time when he took shots at Frank Layden. Frank was not only one of the best coaches in the entire league, but he was also the funniest. He won Coach of the Year back in 1984. And while he was at the peak of his prowess, his Utah Jazz side took on the Boston Celtics, led by the one and only Larry Bird. As the game progressed, Bird was having one of those nights, and he made sure everyone knew it. Running by the bench telling Frank how it's a heat check to see how hot he is. Frank didn't have an answer to the Great White Hope's verbal barrage, and was left speechless. Larry was having a ton of fun, and immediately after sank a tough shot, and yelled at Frank, asking him if he's got anyone else on the bench who can guard him. Because the Jazz players on the court clearly couldn't get the job done. Unbelievable. Frank, being the funny man that he is, told Bird that he didn't have anyone who could guard him, and Bird laughed it off. Imagine being that good. Bird didn't have to imagine that though, because he was that good, and his plays have gone down in NBA history. Speaking of Larry's most legendary plays, I wouldn't be any good at my job if I didn't talk about the steal. This play was as clutch as it gets. Back in the 1987 Eastern Conference Final, the Celtics were down 107-106 in Game 5, and a loss would have been a nightmare, because it meant going to Detroit down 3-2. But with only 5 seconds left, Larry came up with a bright idea. The Pistons thought Boston had switched off and accepted defeat. But little did the Pistons know, Larry hadn't switched off, and they ran the regular play by throwing an inbounds pass. Larry stole the pass while losing his balance, managed to stay in bounds, and threw the perfect pass to Dennis Johnson, who laid it up to steal a victory from under the noses of the Pistons. The Celtics went on to win the series and progressed through to the NBA Finals, all because Bird saw an opportunity when no one else did, and seized it. But that's hardly the most shocking and mesmerizing moment of Larry's career. Here's a moment that truly captures the essence of Larry Bird in the best way possible. The time he came close to recording an elusive quadruple-double. Do you know how rare that is? In fact, it's so rare that only 4 players have done it: Nate Thurmond, Alvin Robertson, Hakeem Olajuwon, and David Robinson. When Bird torched the Utah Jazz, scoring 30 points, grabbing 12 rebounds, and dishing out 10 assists. He managed to get 9 steals, and with the team up by 30 going into the fourth quarter, Bird set out for the rest of the contest. 1 whole quarter to get a steal? I'd bet my house on it. But Bird didn't play. And later, when he was asked why he didn't go for the record, his response was iconic. "I already did enough damage. Why go for it if we're up by 30? Larry never chased the numbers, only greatness. MJ may have had the flu game, but before that, Bird had the Heat game against the Lakers in 1984. The history books call it that for 2 reasons. 1, Larry was on fire, and 2, the air conditioning in the arena wasn't working, and temperatures soared to 97 degrees. But that didn't faze Bird, who put on one of the best performances of his career, shocking the whole world with 34 points and 17 rebounds as the Celtics took a big win, which led to Bird's 2nd career title and his first Finals MVP award. As much as this moment has been immortalized in NBA history, the one Larry Bird moment that stands out the most came in the 1985-1986 season. The time Kodak decided to play left-handed, and the story's wonderful. The Celtics were on a long road trip, had a great run, and only lost 1 game. They were set to finish their journey against Portland, and Larry told reporters that he'd be playing the game left-handed because he was saving his right hand for the Lakers, who the Celtics were playing next. True to his word, Larry played the first 3 quarters left-handed and scored 20 points. He switched to his right in the 4th and in overtime, leading the Celtics to a narrow win with a total of 47 points. What a crazy player. They don't make him like this anymore. So from playing left-handed against the Trailblazers to shocking Lance Stephenson and the Pacers, those were times Larry Bird shocked the world. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.